morning, everyone. I'm Kimberly Sulfridge with the Kids Money Project, and I am super thrilled to have back with me Kimberly Evans of Purposed Consulting. Hey, Kimberly, how are you doing this morning? It's almost afternoon.
And it is. I am doing super amazing. Thank you. How are you today?
I am doing pretty great, actually. We got nice sun out now. It was a little colder this morning than I
It,
expected
it
it to be.
was.
So I got my long sleeves on. We actually still had the AC on in one of the rooms and woke up and it was 39 degrees and it was a little cold in the house.
Yeah, that would be a little chilly, but the sun was deceiving this morning for sure because it is a beautiful day and you expected it to be warm outside and it's
And
not
I think it
quite.
is supposed to warm up. So hopefully we get there sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming back. I know we had you on about a month ago, I think, when we were talking about generational wealth, and we kind of had a kind of an overview conversation of what generational wealth is, because I think a lot of times people have a misconception of what that can actually be, or what it actually means to. Well, obviously, I kind of look at the conversation side of it a lot, since I'm all about talking to your kids about money. And so I kind of wanted to just kind of continue with that conversation a little bit more. And I came across kind of an interesting article that was actually talking about why people don't talk to their kids about wealth, which I thought was interesting and didn't surprise me too much that it mirrored a lot of the excuses that you hear about on why they don't talk to them about money. And so a
Mhm.
lot of that is, they think they're too young, they don't understand, they're afraid of a lot of the things that may come along with having the money conversation because they don't want them focused on money. And
Right.
and that's something I get a lot. Everybody is like, well, why are you only talking about money? And I'm like, well, I'm not suggesting that that is the only thing you talk to your child about. So please
Right.
do not get that impression. I'm just saying it is one of the important things that we need to have these conversations with our kids. And but it was basically kind of talked about, that parents and even grandparents and adults that are around kids, it's important that they kind of do the walk and the talk. So the walk you're going to do no matter what, because they're in their lives, they're present in their lives, or hopefully you're present in their lives. Please be present in your child's life. But
Please.
they can see what you're doing, they're watching you, which of course means you need to be careful with what you're doing. But the
Right.
talking is where it kind of falls short. And one of the things we hear about the most is they don't have these conversations because they're kind of afraid of that it might give kids an entitlement feeling, that um, they're afraid that they may become spoiled or something like that. And I thought I'd kind of see what your opinion was on that, and in just having these conversations.
Yeah, so and I have a couple of thoughts around it. The one of which would be it's interesting to me as parents that we raise our children and we'll teach them how to read and to write and how to be polite and how to be respectful. We teach them all these things, and the whole idea behind raising children is that they become productive members of society. We want them to be able to become adults and then contribute and be good people and all these other things that parents say about their kids. And yet, one of the aspects that's so important to their adult life is the conversation around money and wealth. And yet, we skip that conversation.
Mhm.
And so, the sense of entitlement is really only if you allow them to have that sense. Children are very, very smart,
Mhm.
and they're very intuitive. So even if you're talking to them about money, and even if you come from a place of wealth where you have quite a bit of money, that does not mean you need to tell your children they have access to your money. You can still teach them how they need to earn their money and then how they use it, and explain to them how it's a tool. So it's interesting that although that's a huge part of our adult lives, and we all know we're adults a whole lot longer than we're children, unfortunately, because most of us would just assume go back to our childhood.
Yeah.
um, we don't teach them that part, right? So, and even in schools, we go to school for a very, very long time, but even in schools, we don't make that a priority. Yet we expect everybody to get out of school, become parents, have kids, become productive members of society, and make all these wise decisions when it comes to their money. Yet nobody's ever taught them how to.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
So it's interesting to me that we don't have that conversation, or how we make it sound like that's a bad thing,
Mhm.
yet we're fine with them taking biology.
Right. Yeah, because I don't know about you, but I have not used any of my biology at all.
Not any. Not even a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Trust me, you probably wouldn't want me to.
Exactly. That's why people become doctors and things like that. So it's interesting though, right? We're fine with them dissecting a frog. We're fine with them learning chemistry, right?
Mhm.
The tables. We're fine with algebra. We're fine with all this other complicated stuff, yet not money or
Mhm.
not wealth. And so I don't understand that, but I think it's a paradigm shift that you and I are so determined to change
Yes.
because we know how that changes people's lives and how it will change children's lives.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and money is one of those things that is a part of our life, whether we like it or not, whether we want if we want to be wealthy or not, whatever it is a part of our life. I mean, we
Mhm.
have to have it to, pay for shelter, transportation, clothes, food. It is a part of our life. And so we're going to have to deal with it no matter what.
Mhm.
But if you don't know how to deal with it, then it's just that much more complicated and you're going to have that many more struggles. You're going to create that much more stress on yourself, which of course impacts so much more of, just health in general. And so
Right.
it's, I never have understood because my mother did have these conversations with me. So it
Mhm.
is kind of a, I don't understand not having them because I wasn't on that side of the equation, which I'm very glad about, by the way.
Mhm. Right.
But I know what it did for me, which is obviously why I am trying to encourage parents to start these. And I realize, unfortunately, that they don't know how to have a lot of these conversations, which is, the whole purpose of what I'm trying to do. Because I want them to have these conversations to prepare their kids and be able to be more productive members of society and maybe not be so stressed out or living paycheck to paycheck all the time because of this.
Well, and I think it gets back to the quality of life conversations,
Mhm.
right? I think that children emulate what their parents do. So if parents seem stressed out about money, even if you don't tell the kids you're stressed out about money, they know it, they feel it.
Oh,
Kids
yes.
inherit things like when we say, well, we can't afford that, we can't afford that. They grow up with the mentality that they can't afford it, even though you may have been able to afford it.
Mhm.
Or if you say, well, we're always going to be poor, we don't have this, all of those kind of things that you speak into your children at the same time. And so, what I would really encourage parents to do is, even if you weren't taught how to do it or don't know how to do it, learn with your kids and just be honest with your kids and change that conversation. Because it's interesting, we spend a lot of time teaching parents how to talk to their kids about drugs.
Mhm.
We spend a lot of time talking to parents about how to speak to your kids about sex.
Mhm.
We spend a lot of time talking about all these things that they need to know before they leave the house so that they're safe.
Yes.
Yet, somehow or another, money seems like this unnecessary conversation or this evil conversation, and it
Mhm.
probably ranks right up there with that same conversation, so that they don't have to struggle
Mhm.
and that they don't have to have, plus they have this false sense of what the world works like, right?
Right.
So if you don't teach them and then they get out, now I do say this all the time, right? Parents are like, well, I shouldn't have to teach my kids how to pay the electric bill. Well, no, you don't have to teach them, because the first time their electricity is turned off, they'll figure out that they probably should pay that bill. So
Right.
that's true. But you need to teach them, how do you save? What does credit mean? How's it going to impact you? Basic, small, simple things, how to save for something they want. You can ingrain a lot of moral types of things
Mhm.
into your children around money as well. But here's what parents make the mistake I think they do, is that we always think we have time.
Yes.
We always think we have time. And you and I talk about this quite a bit. You know, your mother trained you this way your whole life, but you lost your mother a whole lot earlier than you thought you would. And
Absolutely.
had she not had those conversations with you while you were young, it would
Mhm.
have been too late for her to have them.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
I
I
think,
I was 25 and, you know, and that's what comes up is that, they're afraid that they're not ready. And again, I think we don't give kids the credit a lot of times that they deserve. They are
mhm,
extremely smart.
mhm,
And again, you're not starting your 2 or 3-year-old talking about complex financial situations, but
right.
you're building those steps up.
Mhm. Well, and what I would tell parents to think about, your kids can pick up. Matter of fact, we have my 3-year-old nephew and my 6-year-old granddaughter was here last weekend.
Mhm.
And she said she was on her tablet and she says to me, well, it's not connected to the internet, so it won't work. She was trying to show me a game she plays. And I was like, okay. So she goes to the settings, shows me where the internet is and puts it, and she goes, okay, so put your Wi-Fi in here. And I'm just looking at her like, you're 6. What are you doing? So
Right.
I imagine that if she can figure that out and understand that, or they have PlayStation 5s and they can beat Call of Duty or whatever the popular game is that everybody's so, if they can comprehend all of that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
they can comprehend saving money. They can comprehend paying bills. They can, and again, it doesn't have to be complex. It needs to be age appropriate, but
Mhm.
it's okay to incorporate some of that conversation with your kids so that they can use it later. And you never know when they're going to need it. Nobody knows. And you and I talk about this all the time because I love what I do, but I so really want people to stop telling me, well, I'll do that when I'm ready, or I'll do that at the right time, or I'm not expecting that to happen. That is not how life works. None of us are expecting any of these things, and none of us can control all of them. That is the reason why you plan and you're prepared, because that way you don't have to panic when something happens.
Absolutely.
But so many people are like, well, like my favorite is when people say, well, we're going to have kids with the right time. You
Yeah,
find
when
a
is that?
parent that'll tell you when that happens.
Right.
All of us would be like, yeah, that's not how that works.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of mentality we have about things in life. And I think, if we're not careful, we're also setting our children up for failure,
Mhm.
or to just struggle unnecessarily for things that they could avoid or be taught. And again, even if you weren't taught it, doesn't mean that you need to carry that on generation after generation. Let's change that generational kind
Yes.
of conversation and make it better for those behind us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I love that you said that, it's unintentional. You're not intentionally doing this to a
Mhm,
child, but you never know when it can happen. And
mhm,
like in my mother's situation, she was sick for a little bit. So we had a
right,
little bit of ramp up time that we knew. But unfortunately, she wasn't able to have a lot of these discussions. This was not
right,
something we could have actually talked about. We were able to have kind of a one-way conversation about a lot of it, but she couldn't really explain anything to me. Now,
mhm,
fortunately, we'd had these conversations this entire time leading up, long before she ever knew she was sick or anything like that. And so when the day came that unfortunately that time was coming, it was literally about kind of just sitting down and making sure I just had I knew where everything was. I understood it. It was literally just a little bit of checks and, getting ready. And not this like I've got to explain everything right now and you're trying to pass everything on.
right,
And so which I know had to make her feel better
right.
because well, and I'll say this and I hope I don't tear up doing it because I do a lot, unfortunately. But
Okay.
one of our last conversations when we were kind of going through stuff there at the very end, um, I was going through her files and stuff like that, and I was speaking because she really couldn't. And I glanced up at her at one point. She had a big smile on her face and kind of a tear running down her eye. And I kind of was like, is something funny? What what's going on? And she just looked me straight in the eye. And she was able to speak a little bit. She just a lot of times her words were mixed up. And she was like, "You were listening."
Mhm,
And I knew at that point I'd given her probably about the best gift I could have given her
mhm,
at that point in her life because she knew, at that point we were at days and there was no more time to be able to teach. It was, I hope I did my job.
right.
And having that conversation, we were able to kind of, she realized she had done her job and that I was going to be okay because a parent never wants to leave. And yes, I was an adult, but I was 25. I mean,
Well, I
you're
don't know
a
that
parent
we ever
forever.
become adults when it comes to our parents. We're always still their kids. We
Oh,
still want their approval. We still want them to be proud of us. It's like
yeah.
you never really outgrow that kind of stuff, I don't think.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and you're a parent for life. And
Yep.
I mean, and of course, you plan on that being a much longer period of
Right.
time. You want to have more of those experiences. And, she was with me when I bought my first house, which meant I bought my first house, before I was 25.
Right.
And, a lot of people can't say they can do that just because they're not,
Mhm,
ready financially to be able to take on that kind of responsibility. But
mhm,
because of her teachings, I was able to. So, readiness wise, yeah, it is age appropriate conversations, but it's age appropriate conversations as you're stacking them up. The you start early and kind of build that base and that foundation, and it's
mhm.
so much easier to add on to it.
Right. And the thing I think parents need to think about is really, even if you weren't taught this, but I always ask people this question: are you prepared to take care of your parents fully?
Right.
Or are your kids prepared to take care of you fully? If you've not put all those things in place and something unexpected does happen, where does that leave all of your kids or your parents or your family? And so if there's people that you care about and love, you want to start teaching them all the things that you would like for them to know right now. And over a period of time, all of those things will stick. And it's funny you say that your mother smiled and she was proud that you were listening, because I remember when my daughter went to college, we live in Dallas, obviously, and she went to college in Florida. And probably her freshman year, second semester of her freshman year or so, I heard her talking to some of her friends about something. And she was telling them what I had told her.
Right.
And I was impressed by the conversation. So I made the comment to her. I said, well, I said, I'm really impressed about how you explained that to your friends and the advice that you gave them. And she's like, oh, mom, we hear you guys and stuff. I know we act like we're not listening, but we hear everything you tell us. And then we pull it out when we need it. And that really stuck with me, because I think sometimes parents feel like, well, they're not paying attention or they're not listening,
Right.
but they do hear you and they do apply it and they respect it and they want that guidance. And the better you can set them up for success, the better they will be off. And like for us, we always plan. I don't want my kids stressed out trying to take care of us as we age.
Yes.
My husband and I went through that, and we ended up having to take care of our mothers. Different generation and different time, but all of those things can be prevented. So we get to change that. So the kids behind us do it differently, and the kids behind them will do it differently. And it's just so important, and they get it so much earlier than we give them credit for.
Oh,
So yeah, I think it's so important. Have the conversations that are age appropriate and start today. And
mhm.
if you don't know what to say, if you don't know it yourself because you weren't taught that, reach out for some help, and we can give you the things to teach. We can give you the age appropriate things. Those of us that are in the industry that really want to see people have the quality of life that they want to live, which, that's why purpose consulting is named, for what I was purposed to do.
Exactly.
Me and God talk about this a lot, but but it's really, really important. And that's just my gift to the world, is really kind of saying to everybody, listen, I don't know everything, but you and I know this. And this is our contribution. This is the part we can help with. And then we'll pull you in to help with the rest of it. And collectively, we will all be better off by the generations that go by.
Mhm. Oh yeah. And well, and kind of just to kind of bring it full circle on the generational wealth. Let's say you're fortunate enough and you've done very well and you're going to be able to leave your kids, a nice fortune, essentially, be able to pass that forward to them. But if you have not talked to them about how to manage it, guess what's going to happen to it?
Right.
It's going to disappear. They
Hmm.
don't know how to manage it at that point. And so, we've seen it all the time. You see athletes, unfortunately, a lot of times, they've come all the way, maybe they not a great upbringing or something like that. They, coming from nothing, they get these huge contracts. I mean, millions and millions and millions of dollars. They have never seen money like that. Most of us have never seen money like that.
Hmm.
And suddenly it's thrust upon them and they have no idea how to handle it because nobody's talked to them about money. And
Hmm.
so what happens? It's gone just as fast as they get it. And of course, in a career like that, that's not a lifelong career. You've got,
Right.
if you're lucky, maybe 15 years. And
Hmm.
so, it's important to make that money in that 15 years, put it away and have that money working for you. And believe me, it's enough money for sure.
For sure. Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
and I think that's the key, right? It's figuring out where do you have that conversation. Like I always tell everybody, if I could get to athletes
Yes.
quicker and entertainers quicker, if I could figure out a way to just get to them and say, okay, listen, I just need you for this part away. Like do
Mhm.
whatever you want to do, but let me help you with this piece right here, just so that they know kind of where they are. Because to your point, we have had the conversation with our kids. I mean, we're leaving our kids an entire company,
Mhm.
not let alone just all the individual things that we're saving and everything, but they're going to get the company. So we have a trust set up for them, and they know the trust. They know what's in our will. They know what's going to be done and who needs to do what and all these kind of things, because you never know. And I don't want the added stress for our kids. It's going to
Yes.
be bad enough that they lost us. It's
Right.
going to be bad enough that they're making that transition. The last thing I want to do is then add the stress of how are we going to pay for it? How do we deal with this company? What do we do about the house? All of those kind of things,
Mhm.
when we can just lay all that out for them now, and then they can just grieve and
Mhm.
know exactly what they need to do. And I'm praying that they will do the same thing for their kids. And that's kind of what we teach them. And we've been teaching them that way forever. As we grow and learn stuff, or as we add stuff, we share it with the kids.
Mhm. No, I mean, yay. Absolutely. I mean, and that's exactly what my mother did for me. That's exactly what I'm talking about parents doing for their kids because it is, and I call it one of the greatest gifts that you can give your kids. And I say that because I was one of those kids. And so I can say I am so glad that she had these conversations with me, because obviously she didn't plan to pass as early as in life as she did. And had she waited until I was old enough to understand this, like one I hear a lot is, "Oh, well, they don't understand these things because they've not experienced them." Well, true, but if you're talking to them, once they get to that experience, they're going to make a lot fewer mistakes when it comes to it. Maybe not even make mistakes at all. It is money. We're all we are human. We are going to make mistakes.
Mhm.
But if we can eliminate a lot of these bigger mistakes, and learn, make them earlier in life when they're a lot less expensive to make, that can really change things in a person's life. And so, you know,
So what I might suggest to people is to think about this. Most everything you're teaching your kids, most everything you're teaching your kids, they have not experienced yet.
yes, it's
So
very
to
true.
say that they haven't experienced the conversation around money is the exact same conversation to say they haven't experienced sex, they haven't experienced drugs, they haven't. That's because they're children.
Right.
So you're teaching them those things so that when they get in those situations, they can make the proper decision. So
Mhm.
I'm just going to suggest that that is the same exact thing for money. You
Mhm.
want them to be in a situation where even if they don't understand it fully at the time, when it is introduced to them in their lives, they can go, I think my parents said something about this, or let me check. And if your parents are still alive, you can go back and ask them.
Right.
But if not, you at least stop go long enough to go, I think I know something about this, or I'm supposed to do something. Let me do some checking.
Mhm.
And that's the whole key. So I just think we have to stop kind of separating.
Mhm.
It's like money is not evil. It is
Right.
not the root of evil. The love of money is the root of all evil.
Yes.
But money in and of itself, it is literally part of how we live our lives. It's part of our society. And I think to leave it out then leaves out a part of the responsibility we have to our kids and to the generations to come behind us.
Absolutely. It's a tool. We need to learn how to use that tool. And
Exactly.
if you don't, you're going to make mistakes all along
Mhm,
the way. But
mhm,
knowing how to use it, imagine how much better all of that will be. So,
mhm. Yeah, I mean, and we do a lot of events, right? And one of the
oh
things
yeah.
that we always hear is, I wish somebody would have told me this when I was younger. I hear that at least 4 or 5 times a day. I wish
Yes.
somebody would have told me this. I was like, man, I wish I'd have known this in my 20s. Man, I wish, I hear that all
Mhm.
the time. And I'm like, no, I get it. I do too. I mean, because I had an opposite experience of yours, and both of
Right.
you and I ended up here. But the challenges to do so are completely different, and that's okay. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just what it is, but it doesn't mean it can't be fixed. But I hear that all day, every day.
Mhm.
Man, I wish I would have known this. How come they didn't teach me this in school? That kind of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not an educator. I didn't write the curriculum, but I will do my best to get it into school. I'm
Right.
working on it. We're working on it.
Oh, absolutely. No, and I'm with you. I hear that all the time. I at least daily that I hear that, and it's true. You can't know until you're in that place. And so think of it. If you're thinking that now that you wish they had talked to you, start with your kids. Don't let them
Right.
be saying that 20 years from now. So,
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the
well,
fun part of doing this. That's the fun
yes.
part of all of this is just changing that whole mindset altogether.
Mhm. Well, and not to mention it can be fun to watch your kids really, because they will take it in. I mean, at the beginning, it's going to be kind of an interesting because they're not going to understand. They're not going to get it. But once you have these conversations over and over, and as they're getting a little older, they start to put it all together. Because again, it's not you tell them one time and they get it.
Hmm.
Nobody really learns that first time. It's in
But
particular.
that's true about everything.
Yes,
I mean, how
absolutely.
many times do parents repeat themselves? They're like, if I have to say this one more time, it's like, yep.
Oh yeah. Oh, to the point where you're just like, "Really?"
Hmm.
But it's just explaining it to them, and as you're kinda moving that forward, it will make all the difference in their life. So, but, yeah, so we'll leave it there, but, Kimberly, thank you so much for coming back. I love having you because you have so much insight on different things, and, definitely, this was one that I kinda wanted to go on just because I get asked a lot of times, it, so many people want to wait, and I just want to shake them, and say,
Uh-huh.
no, don't. You
Yep.
can't afford to wait. And so I wanted somebody else to kind of say it too, because I know I say it all the
Okay,
time.
you can't afford to wait. listen to Kimberly and Kimberly.
That's right. Yes, you got the Kimberlys telling you you cannot afford to wait.
Yes, indeed. And this is a perfect time to start this conversation because it's April 1st and April is Financial Literacy Awareness Month.
That's
It's a
right.
national month. And so what we really need to tell people is first issue people, it's not as hard as you think. I know money seems to be so complicated. It really is not.
Mhm.
And the other part of it is just you don't know what you don't know, but don't sit back and not know. Ask the
Right.
questions. Let those of us that want to help. And that is why we're here.
Absolutely. You can said it better myself. So that is perfect. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much. And
You're
I know we
welcome.
want you to come back if you're up for it and everything. So
Always, I enjoy these conversations. I'm on a mission. I am determined.
and I love that about you because I know you well enough to know that you are completely committed to this mission, and so I love that about you. So
Thank you.
well, thank you so much, and we hope that you got something out of this and maybe understand why it is so important not to wait on these things. So we'll come back and we'll have Kimberly back here soon, and we'll see everybody soon.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks, beautiful.
Thank you. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.